The identity tax. You may already be paying it, even if nobody has ever sent you a bill. Consider a composite case built from patterns in questions, conversations, and situations I have encountered. The character, workplace, purchases, chronology, and central sentence are constructed. In this case, a young employee faces a mystery at work. She is competent, she arrives early, checks her work, and cannot find a missed deadline or a careless mistake. Yet her manager has gone cold. Good assignments move elsewhere. Important conversations happen without her. When she asks whether her work is the problem, she is told everything is fine. At the center of the case is one sentence that looks like background. Her family is wealthy. Her salary would not cover one of her handbags. She took the job because she wanted to prove her worth. Nothing in that sentence is a moral failure. Family money is not a sin. A beautiful object is not a sin. Ambition is not a sin. But put the pieces together, and you can see a gap. The position she occupied, the position her signals appeared to claim, and the position other people assigned to her were three different things. That gap may have been more expensive than the bag. Hi, I am Leo. Welcome to Wiki for What? This is where we unpack the mind, machines, and hidden systems shaping the AI era through stories and models you can actually use. I recently wrote a book called The Identity Tax. I do not want to protect its best ideas behind a teaser. I want to give you the full model, the two exits, and the warning that keeps the model honest. The identity tax is the ongoing, invisible cost you pay when a label you display does not match the position you can actually support. It is not paid directly in money. It is paid in currencies such as distrust, extra scrutiny, anxiety, isolation, and missed opportunity. The tax metaphor matters because these costs often arrive without an explanation. A financial bill names the purchase, the amount, and the due date. An identity bill does none of that. A colleague becomes guarded. A friend stops confiding in you. You feel pressure to maintain a performance you no longer enjoy. Because nothing is itemized, you file each charge under another name. Bad luck, a difficult room, or something wrong with your personality. To read the bill, imagine 3 portraits of you hanging in 3 different rooms. The first is the actual self. What you can genuinely do, what you have actually done, and what resources you can truly call your own. This portrait does not grow because you use a larger title. It does not shrink because a stranger underestimates you. It is simply the current ledger of reality. The second is the claimed self, the person you present and hope to receive credit for. Your clothes can help paint it, so can a title, a social feed, the books arranged behind you, the story you tell about how well the company is doing, or the calm voice you use while everything backstage is on fire. A claimed self is not automatically false. It can be an honest statement of direction. Every beginner must sometimes wear tomorrow's clothes before they fully fit. The third is the perceived self, the person other people construct from the fragments they can see. This is the portrait hanging in rooms you cannot enter. You do not control the brush, yet it is the only portrait other people can act on. Your manager cannot interact directly with your private intentions. She interacts with her reading of you. In this model, when the 3 portraits substantially match, life can feel lighter. You do not need to remember which story you told to which room. Your work, your claim, and other people's expectations point toward roughly the same person. When they separate, you get a misalignment gap. That gap is the taxable base. This is a synthesis, not a clinical diagnosis. Psychologist E. Torrey Higgins developed self-discrepancy theory to study gaps among the actual self, the ideal self, and the self a person feels they ought to be. That is not the same trio I am using here. But the family resemblance is useful. A mismatch involving the self can produce a distinctive emotional cost. Research on self-verification also suggests that people seek some consistency between their own self-view and the way important others see them. We do not float through social life as blank pages. We keep checking whether the portraits line up. Now return to the handbag, but place 3 buyers at 3 counters. The first is an experienced founder whose record, resources, and reputation already support the signal. The second is a junior employee with access to family wealth but almost no track record in that particular room. The third has financed the same bag with debt while trying to project a position she does not occupy. Same object. 3 possible tax rates. The founder may pay almost nothing because the bag adds no unsupported claim. The junior employee may attract resentment or doubt because observers confuse access to resources with a claim about earned standing. The indebted buyer may pay twice, an invisible social and psychological cost plus a very visible monthly bill. The point is not that any observer's judgment is fair. It often is not. The point is that the object alone cannot tell you the rate. The rate follows the gap as a particular room perceives it. That distinction prevents the idea from collapsing into a sermon about wealth. An inexpensive label can create a wide gap. An expensive label can create none. The founder can carry the bag in complete ease. The object was never the defendant, and the mechanism extends far beyond objects. A curated life is a claimed self with a publishing schedule. You post the perfect trip, the productive morning, the affectionate dinner, and the business milestone. Each post may be true, but the gallery can create a maintenance problem. Once the audience knows the exhibit, every new room may feel expected to match the others. The cost is not simply screen time. It can be the low hum of wondering whether the life still supports the feed. Success theater is the offline version. A founder tells everyone the company is doing great while privately frightened. A parent becomes the one who always has it together. A student becomes the gifted one who never asks for help. A convincing performance can make help less likely to arrive. The applause can become a wall between the actor and anyone who might help. Even wisdom can become a wardrobe. You can collect the vocabulary of insight, display the reading list, and learn to sound like someone who has changed. If the language outruns the behavior, the very identity of being thoughtful can protect you from the uncomfortable work thoughtfulness requires. Under all three is the proving trap. It begins with an internal question, am I enough? Then it recruits an external anchor to answer. A purchase, title, audience, or impressive association becomes evidence for the defense. But if you needed the anchor to prove the case, part of you knows the verdict was never settled, so you reach for a stronger anchor. The golden shovel gets more expensive while the hole gets deeper. This is why a label does more than sit on you. It starts writing your lines. Suppose people accept your claim that the company is thriving. They congratulate you. They send opportunities suited to a thriving founder. Now admitting trouble costs more, so you keep performing. Their perception strengthens your claim, and your claim pressures your actual behavior. A single gap becomes a loop. Sometimes that loop is growth. Expectations can pull you toward work you freely choose to earn. The crucial questions are direction and consent. Are you building the actual capacity behind a label you value, or scrambling to preserve a role you never consciously chose? One closes the gap, the other merely services it. The book recommends 2 constructive responses that close the gap defined by this model. Retire the label or grow into it. People can also rationalize, minimize, avoid, compartmentalize, or stay put. And there are times when neither constructive response is appropriate or safe right now. Those are real choices. They simply do not close the particular gap this model identifies. The first is to retire the label. Lower the claim until it meets reality. Say, the project failed. Replace, I run a company with, I am testing a product. Stop publishing a version of home life that makes honest conversation impossible. This can feel like loss because an audience may revise its portrait of you, but it is one deliberate payment that ends a recurring charge. The second is to grow into the label. Keep the direction, then build the evidence. If you want to be a writer, write. If you want to be a reliable operator, solve difficult problems repeatedly and leave a record. Do the work until the title changes from aspiration into description. These exits look opposite. One lowers the claim, the other raises the reality, but both perform the same operation. They close the gap. There is also a possible strategy for the long middle. Call it quiet armor, deliberately under-signaling while the actual self is under construction. Quiet armor is a strategy hypothesis, not an established intervention. Signaling less may reduce one kind of scrutiny, but it can also reduce recognition or opportunity. It is not self-erasure, fake humility, or permission for other people to keep you small. It is choosing not to spend energy defending a claim when that energy could build the evidence. Quiet may give the workshop cover. It is valuable only if real work is happening behind it. What does that work accumulate? Call it an identity ledger, the accumulated verifiable record of what you have actually done. A problem that stayed solved, a thing you built that still works, a person you helped who would vouch for you after the title disappeared, a skill you can perform under pressure. These entries remain true when a company changes the locks, a platform loses attention, or a room changes its mind. Think of the difference between a costume and a ledger. A costume is issued by an audience and can be taken back by an audience. A ledger records what happened in reality. The two can look similar from far away. A job title and demonstrated ability often travel together, but remove the institution and see what remains. That remainder is closer to what you own. The ledger also draws attention to three luxuries no label can replace: time, attention, and health. The identity tax metaphor suggests possible drains on all three. Maintaining a curated self may consume attention. Keeping success theater sealed may affect sleep, stress, or health. Servicing the proving trap may consume time. These are possible metaphorical pathways, not equations or diagnoses. In a particular life, money, institutions, illness, relationships, or social power may matter more. A label bought with all three may look valuable while leaving the accounts that support a life dangerously empty. Here is a practical audit. Choose one room, not your entire life. It could be your team, your family, one group of friends, or an audience online. Write one sentence for the claimed self in that room. What impression are you trying to create? Write one sentence for the actual self. What can you support with evidence today? Then write the sentence you think someone in that room would use to describe you to a stranger. That is only a guess at the perceived self, so hold it lightly. Now circle the widest distance among the three. Name the currency it may be costing: trust, ease, attention, company, opportunity, or something else. If it feels appropriate and safe, choose whether this label should be retired or earned. You do not need to complete the response today. You only need to stop calling the meter invisible. This metaphor has a firm boundary. Not every cold manager, lost opportunity, anxious evening, or strained relationship is an identity tax. Power, prejudice, poor leadership, exploitation, and ordinary incompatibility are real. A person who is excluded is not automatically responsible for having sent the wrong signal. The framework is a question to ask about your own controllable claims, not a theory that excuses unfair treatment or tells other people to hide who they are. There is no moral score attached to the size of a gap. Ambition creates gaps. Reinvention creates gaps. Entering a new room creates gaps. The goal is not to become perfectly transparent or permanently small. The goal is to read a cost that usually arrives without a label, then decide whether the future named by your claim is worth building. So look at the room that matters most right now. Which portrait is doing the talking there, and what is it costing the other two? Pick one idea from this episode and keep exploring it. The next useful tool, book, or decision will make more sense now. I am Leo. See you in the next one.